Our Stefan Wall joins us now. He is the Commissioner for Information for Kogi State. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, about this matter, because over the weekend there were reports, there were pictures of accidents, we don't even know if to call them an accident. It looks as though they were deliberate acts. The account that came from you said that they were attacks on the governor's convoy, but the SDP candidate says no, it was his convoy that were attacked, and in fact those pictures show that they were the ones that were attacked according to him. But you put up a statement saying that the governor's convoy was stopped and attacked. So it's been going back and forth. So let's hear from you now. What exactly happened?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chamberlain, and all the crew members this morning. Good morning to viewers around the world. What happened on that fateful day was something that was very unfortunate. The governor was returning from Abuja after the meetings of the governors with Mr. President. And as he was returning, he noticed that there was a convoy in front of him, and he followed that convoy for 40 minutes before he could get a chance to overtake the convoy. But when he was trying to overtake the convoy, that was when it became obvious that the convoy of the SDP candidate was deliberately blocking the governor from overtaking that very convoy. And the governor cannot, because of his security and safety, cannot be lining behind that convoy. That would be very unsafe. And attempts to overtake him was blocked. And a certain Tundra with a logo of SDP faced head-on the governor's vehicle. And, the security of the governor, all the security operatives came down. And it was discovered that even inside that Tundra were firearms in the hands of people that were not trained or legally permitted to hold them. And that was where the problem started from. But the good thing is that the governor was able to leave that place unhurt, because the intention of the thoughts that were in the convoy of the SDP candidates was to attack and hurt the governor. It was very obvious. And at the time that the governor's security were trying to ensure that the governor was safe, a lot of things happened. And I think security agencies are currently investigating. Shots were fired, even from the convoy of the SDP candidates. And in the process of firing those shots, I am very sure some of the vehicles in the convoy of the governor were touched by those shots, and also their own vehicles were also touched by those shots. The governor instructed that none of the security aides should fire any shot at all, because to him, the safety of everyone in the convoy, who are all Kogites, was paramount. And that was exactly what happened.
You say the governor's convoy was followed for 40 minutes. But now I hear you say that the governor says no one should open fire, but shots had been fired at the time. So I'm trying to see how I can connect the dots. So, because there are comments ascribed to the governor saying an elephant was passing and then an antelope got in the way, then they had to crush the antelope, which suggesting that because the SDP say that statement meant that he was the one who came for them, not that, because his convoy definitely will have a lot of firepower. How will anyone try to go attack the governor's convoy?
Chamberlain, there was no confusion in all of this. I said the governor was patiently following the convoy. He didn't want to forcefully overtake the convoy. So there was no confusion there. When he got to the point that he thought he could overtake the convoy, he did. Or let me say he attempted to do that. And his convoy was blocked. They knew it was the governor's convoy, and they blocked it. And the vehicle faced the governor, and that vehicle was carrying the logo of the SDP, and firearms were found in the vehicle. Although there is no ambiguity in all of this. And what the governor even said in the video that we are talking about, I think you have not reported it very well and correctly. What he said was that the lion was passing, an antelope crossed the line. Next time, there will be no warning. When you say that kind of a thing, what it means is that this time, he only warned them not to try that kind of an attack again. So there was no ambiguity except we tried to create one here.
I want to know, Mr. Fanwo, were you a part of the convoy?
Yes, I was a part of the convoy.
Okay, so you said one of the vehicles turned back and faced the governor's convoy. Is that correct?
Very, very correct. And we sent pictures out to that effect to show the position of that vehicle facing directly the governor's vehicle. And we also showed pictures of firearms in that vehicle that was loaded with thugs.
So what happened when the vehicle turned round and faced the governor's vehicle?
Of course, at that point, it became obvious that there was an imminent attack on the #1 citizen of the state. So, of course, the security of the governor, the security operatives attached to the governor, would definitely deal with the situation by ensuring that the vehicle was cleared off for the governor to be able to move. As at the time the governor moved, all the convoy vehicles were blocked. So I can report to you that it was only the governor's vehicle and the backup that could leave the scene as at that time.
Okay.
All the other vehicles were blocked.
So the security agencies cleared this particular vehicle that had faced the governor's vehicle. Is that correct?
Definitely, yes.
And how many occupants were in that vehicle?
Which of the vehicles are you talking about?
The one that faced the governor.
I wouldn't know the exact number of occupants there. I could only see about 3-4 people in that vehicle, and I could see firearm in that vehicle.
Were they firing? Did they open fire on the governor's vehicle?
As at the time the governor passed, they didn't open fire. What they did was to block that vehicle. But the other vehicles in the convoy of the SDP candidates, there were a lot of shooting from those vehicles. So we knew that they put a lot of talks and a lot of firearms in those vehicles. And when you look at the firearm in that Tundra that faced the governor, you would see that they are new firearms, both rifles, shotguns. They were all in that vehicle. So we wouldn't have been able to misplace their intention. What was the reason why they blocked the vehicle of the governor with another vehicle that was having firearms? I think that should be the question we should be asking them. The intention that their intention of blocking the governor's vehicle with another vehicle with firearms. And most of their vehicles were also having firearms because a lot of their trucks were coming out of the vehicle holding guns and firing sporadically at the convoy of the government.
I'm just trying to imagine, because these vehicles were not remote controlled. I mean, there were people in the vehicles. If a vehicle turns back and faces a governor's convoy, as you've rightly pointed out, the security of the governor has a duty to, clear that particular vehicle and the occupants in it. So I'm a little, curious as to what happened. The people that were in the vehicle, because you talked about how the firearms were discovered in the vehicle. So the question now is, what about the people who were in the vehicle? What happened to them? Were they cleared off as well? Did they lose their lives? Were they firing at the governor's vehicle with the firearms that were found in their car? What precisely were they doing?
At the point they blocked the governor and the security operatives of the governor came down, there is a way they carry out their operations to ensure that the road is free. They did that without necessarily harming, because there was no way they would have attacked those people directly. The issue is under investigation. So it's not that they fired at those people in the vehicles. They cleared the vehicle. I think the #1 thing you need to do at that point is to ensure the safety of the governor, is to ensure that you clear the way for the governor to leave the place. And then you can now deal with the other situation of arresting the occupant, retrieving those firearms and handing over all those people and all those firearms to security agencies. That was exactly what happened.
So the people that were in the vehicle, what happened to them? Do you know?
I'm very sure that the security agencies will release reports of their investigations in the next couple of days. When they do that, they will be able to do that. It is not our responsibility to investigate solely that matter. We've carried out our investigation as government, but security agencies will have to come out with a report of their investigations. And in that video that you are talking about, that the governor spoke at the unveiling of the deputy, the running mates to the governorship candidates of the party, he said that he's calling on security agencies to do a thorough job so that we would avert this kind of brazen, unprovoked, reckless confrontation of the number one citizen of the state. If they could do that to the governor of the state, who has security, I just cannot imagine what will happen to defenseless citizens in the hands of these desperate politicians.
Well, for a number of people, you know, if you're going to look at this, I mean, if you're going to look at politics in Kogi in the last couple of months now, or will I say even the last elections, one of the things that was very unpleasant about what happened in Kogi was the violence that trailed, you know, even election day, campaigns, etc. And it would seem that this is already given an inkling. I mean, for some people, the governor is not even a candidate in the forthcoming elections. He's not on the ballot. And they would think that, you know, the duty that the governor is going to have right now is to ensure that a level playing field is provided for all of the candidates, for them to be able to run on. So given what has already happened with the candidates of the SDP, because this vehicle, we're told, I mean, you've shown us from the pictures that we have seen, is that of the SDP candidate. So your party and I'm sure the government strongly suspects that the candidates of the SDP perhaps was trying to prove some point. That would seem to be the you know, the reading from here. So given what we now see from this incident, how do you think that the Governor Yaya Bello, will be able to provide a level playing field for all of the candidates come the elections this year, which has been slated for November?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we have to take this from very different perspectives. It is not correct, Margaret, that the state was reading with violence in the last election. Yes, there will be one clash here and there, not very many of them. Just like you have in every state of the federation when politicians are involved in their game. That is what I can say about that. But it's not true on the wider scale. You cannot say the last election was reading with violence in Kogi State. Kogi State was largely safe, and comparatively, it was one of the safest during that election. So it is not true that there were.
Which of the elections are we referring to now, Mr. Fanwo?
I thought you were referring to the February-March general election in the States.
That's going to be another kettle of fish, but I was referring to the governorship elections that saw the re-election of Governor Yaya Bello.
Of course, we've had another election. I don't know how we are taking the sequence. We've had another election after that. And even that one is largely debatable when you are talking about the last governorship election. But even let us put that aside.
What is debatable about the violence that trailed the last elections that saw the re-election of Governor Yaya Bello? What is debatable about it?
It's debatable because, you know, the kind of narrative that the opposition was trying to play around the whole thing was to try to use a tempo when they are just to use a thin pen. Because what actually happened was that, you know, people refer to a lot of incidences, but they fail to say that most of those incidents were sparked by reactions to earlier attacks by the opposition. When politicians lose election, they tend to give a lot of reasons to justify why they've lost election. So Kogi is not different from the other states that we have one or two one or two incidents that will occur during elections. So we cannot pin
Mr. Kingsley Fanwo, I sincerely wish that I could go with that narrative, about the violence that trailed the last governorship elections in Kogi State. I mean, if our correspondents were not on the ground there, then perhaps I would have said perhaps it is indeed that maybe it is politicians just making things up. But even on election day, the amount of gun violence that, frightened reporters out of the state, it left a lot to be desired. In that election, or just before the elections, we saw the death of a woman leader in Kogi State. Till date, the swift prosecution of those who carried out that dastardly act is still in question as to whether or not there's been resolution. There are multiple examples of the violence that happened during the elections. Let's not go there. I'm just saying that this is not exactly new in terms of violence and Kogi politics. So I'm wondering how it's going to be looking at what is coming up in November. Do we have to go down that particular path again, or do you think that there will be a clearer path this time around, a cleaner path, a path devoid of violence?
Maupe, before you would say we should not go that lane, you've already gone that lane, and you have unfortunately, by my own perception, joined those who are raising unnecessary alarm over these issues. But that is not even the point this morning. The point is that a candidate of a party in an election who was going with a very large contingent and convoy from Abuja with hired thugs, with firearms, those are the conversations right now. It has nothing to do with what happened in the last governorship election. And instead of us walking around this conversation, we are trying to justify the defensive claim of the accused in this matter. We are trying to help him paint a scenario of one violence in the past and the other. That is not the conversation. The conversation is that the protocol was breached, security was breached. There were firearms in the hands of untrained people. The governor's convoy was blocked from entering the state where he is the governor. These are the conversations that we should be having right now. And when you are talking about creating a level playing ground, this is not. He is the governor of the state. Whether you are in APC, PDP, SDP, ADC, any party, Yahaya Bello is your governor. And it is his responsibility to protect all the citizens of the state, and even people that are not citizens but residing or passing through the state. So it is his responsibility. And there is a difference between his responsibility as a governor and his responsibility as the leader of his party. There must be a state before we can be talking of a party. And he is responsible for ensuring security in that state. You would ask again, the candidate of the Accord Party has been coming to the state. The candidate of the ADC has been coming to the state. The candidate of NNPP, all the other states have been coming to the state. And there were no issues. Why are we having issue now with the candidates of the SDP? The point is not that they were having a rally and they were attacked by maybe rival political party supporters. That is not the issue at the moment. The issue is about a criminal act by the candidate of the SDP.
Well, Mr. Fanwo, several things here.
I'm not trying to play around probably what we thought happened in the past.
Well, several things here. Several things. The videos, the media, their records, the videos of how the last governorship elections played out. So it's all there for everybody to see. We were there. Several people were there. So that's no point of an argument. We're just making reference, trying to find out, to ensure that some of the things that people saw then shouldn't happen again. That's the point that the question was, Makba was trying to address that. But on this particular scenario, I don't understand what you mean by unless we are trying to look. you can't tell us what to ask and what not to ask. There are several narratives, and so the account of the SDP candidate is what we're putting to you, where he says, because you say he is the accused, but he's saying no, the governor himself is also the accused, because from his account, I mean, he's quoted to have said how he escaped assassination, that his own vehicle was specifically targeted after the governor's convoy overtook him. They shot. That is his account. And so when that is put before you, cannot be interpreted as though we're trying to create a certain narrative, unless maybe that's how you see it. But that is his own account. That's what he says.
Yeah, I cannot tell you what to ask, but also I will also choose what to answer, because as you have the right to ask your questions, I also have the right to answer the questions the way I want it. I will put it in the public court for judgment. I think that is the most important thing. And now, when you are talking about even the last governorship election in the state, this kind of scenario was what led to the few incidents that we had, where the wife of the deputy governor, the current deputy governor of the state, was voting. Opposition thugs, hired assassins, fired a shot at her, and she could only escape by entering her vehicle. If not for the fact that the vehicle was an armored vehicle, this is not the story we'll be talking about today. So we need to nip this in the bud, and the media has a role to play to ensure that there is objectivity. We don't have to come out to think that the government or the governor is the aggressor all the time. These opposition leaders who wants power desperately are also trying to overheat the system. And what happened a few days ago when the convoy of the governor was blocked was one of the things that for us to even ensure that there were no kind of uprising and protest against the SDP candidate in the state, the governor had to send messages out that everything is calm, he was safe, and all of that, because that would have turned to a huge crisis in the state. So we have to nip it in the bud, because the security and safety of the people of the state is paramount to the government of Kogi State.
Our colleagues from Lagos.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Mr. Fanwo, just a few clarifications, from here. You said that you were in that convoy during the attack on the governor of Kogi State, and you said that a vehicle blocked the governor's convoy, but you also say that security agents will provide a report from their investigations into what exactly happened, particularly to the occupants of the vehicle in which firearms were discovered. But if you were on that convoy, pardon me, how come you're unable to tell us what happened? How did the governor's security agents neutralize this vehicle that blocked his convoy? What exactly happened to the occupants? And how have you been able to trace the rifles found in that convoy to anybody, particularly to the occupants of the convoy?
Thank you very much. I think we are putting the conversation in the right perspective now and on the stream. The point is that the vehicle was cleared off the road for the governor and the backup vehicle to pass and go safely to Government House. The security agencies took over from that point to ensure that some of those people were apprehended. Immediately, the Commissioner of Police in the state deployed his men. The DSS director deployed his men because it was something that was getting very scary, as the convoy of the vehicle received a lot of bullets from the thugs and assassins in that convoy. So that was what happened. The occupants, I'm very sure, let me say I'm not too sure because I cannot speak for the police. They should by now have been apprehended. And instead of us going back to 2019, where the opposition waged some violence against the ruling party, I think we should be asking questions from the SDP, where they got those firearms. It's quite scary. It was the
2019. Hold on, Mr. Fanwo.
Let me be through with this line of talk. The governor has security, so he could wriggle out from this kind of attacks. But I am afraid. My fear is for the common man on the street. How are they going to withstand this kind of heavy arm building by the SDP candidates and his supporters? I think we need to ask them these questions and nip this in the bud even before the November 11 elections.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fanwo. So you only witnessed, a dispersal of the attackers. You can't quite tell us how security agents took over, arresting the attackers from that point.
They have rules of engagement. They have their operational processes. I think they went through that. I am not going to speak for the security agencies. They will come out at the right time to let the world know the report of their investigations, but I will not be speaking for them. I speak for the government of Kogi State.
Well, I'm just trying to ask you to tell us what you saw if you were in the governor's convoy. Now, to the second part, which is the attack on the SDP governorship candidate. According to his own statements, the attack reportedly took place at about 3:30 p.m. at the Ram Market, while the attack on the governor's convoy took place at the naval base. Correct me if I'm wrong on those details. Now, the attack on the SDP governorship candidate has been attributed to a vehicle from the governor's convoy, which was carrying the governor's crest. I wonder if they've been able to provide evidence to that effect. So if that is the case, is the attack on the governorship candidate of the SDP, was it a reprisal?
Thank you very much. I think they can only tell that to people that are gullible, people who don't understand how some of these things operate. You cannot fire any shots from the governor's vehicle. The governor's vehicle, the backup, are armored vehicles, so you cannot even roll down the side glasses to be able to fire any arm. So they are trying to cook up stories to justify the shenanigan, the show of shame, the unfortunate and unprovoked brazen attack on the convoy of the governor by members of the convoy of the SDP candidate. So it's not true.
Well, Mr. Fanwo, a quick one. One of the reports we have is that there are some security aides of the governor that sustained injuries. How are they faring now?
I think they are doing well. We are checking up on them. They are receiving medical attention in some medical facilities around the state, and I think they are doing well. There was no loss of life so far, and we pray that they will be sound and well.
Has the government made a formal report of this to the police for investigation? Because the issues you are raising, the allegations you are raising, they're only suggesting that government has already come to a decision or a position on this that will be fed to the police, that the police will feed to the public. So has the government made a formal report of this incident to the police?
Yes, we've made a formal report to the police. Not only that, there was a distress call at the scene, at the spot, because the governor could, because of the security around him, leave the place, but he was still very concerned about his aides that were in the convoy and also passers-by. So there was a distress call to the Commissioner of Police, to the Director of DSS, and they immediately mobilized their men to the place to restore normalcy.
Now, Mr. Fanwo, you said that the convoy of the governor saw some guns and all of those things at the location of the incidents and everything. So the question that comes to my own mind is, given the fact that the governor receives security and intelligence reports from time to time, and you say that arms and ammunition came into the state without the governor knowing, and this kind of thing happened so severely that it was the governor that was attacked, there are those who would wonder whether or not this is an indictment of the capacity of the governor of Kogi State to secure his state and his people.
It's not an indictment. I think our security architecture in the must be such that even people that are high-profile politicians are checked at police checkpoints and by security agencies from time to time. At times, they conceal some of these things in their convoy, and they're able to beat security traps to be able to penetrate the state. So I'm not very I'm very sure and confident that it is no indictment on the security architecture of the state. Thank God they did what they did, which further exposed them and then exposed what they were concealing in those vehicles. I think from now, security agencies would have to regraft the security architecture in such a way that even high-profile politicians, business leaders, and all of that are thoroughly checked, like they check the citizens of the country. So it's no indictment.
Well, it's easy to say that because there are those who will still stay in that position. Besides, the candidate that we're talking about now and, the APC had a relationship until recently. There are those who would wonder whether or not this was not the governor himself, trying to discredit this candidate from participating and succeeding at the elections ahead because the guy is probably a threat to the APC in Kogi State. A perception that some people could have. How does the government react?
If we are going to deal with perceptions, we will deal with a million perceptions on this matter. But since you've raised it, let me make this very clear. As a party now, APC does not see SDP as a threat. In the last general elections, we won the presidential election landslide. We won all the 3 senatorial seats. We won 6 out of 9 House of Rep seats. And we won 22 out of 25 House of Assembly seats. What that tells you is that the dominant party in Kogi State is the APC. So I think we are not the one afraid. It's just like a rat saying that a lion is scared of it. That's not the issue. They know they are scared. And it is because of the intimidating credentials and pedigree of APC in Kogi State. That is the reason they are resorting to this kind of violence. We will deal with the situation. We will use the security architecture of the states to ensure that people don't bring firearms to the state. People don't put people at harm's way because of their desperation for power. So we don't have any reason whatsoever. That's why, on our part, we are very peaceful. We are allowing them to do their programs, all the other candidates, including himself. He had come to Kogi to do wonderful things. Nobody harassed him. He was a member of the National Working Committee of the party. So it means that at one point or the other, we've related very closely together. It was because of what happened during the primary election that led him to another party. So he is supposed to still be our friend in APC, but it is unfortunate that he is driven by this desperation.
All right, Mr. Kinsey, we do thank you for coming on the program today. He is the Commissioner for Information for Kogi State.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, well, we also did invite Mr. Amritala Ajaka, the governorship candidate for the SDP, but he did not make the program today. We will be back in just a moment and focus on the fuel subsidy debate. Do join us again.